Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the, we got that echo going on. Welcome to the January 9th edition of Beyond the Data. With us tonight, we have attorneys Mitch Marczewski and Warner Mendenhall again here to update us on local cases and also the wonderful and fascinating Supreme Court hearings from Friday on the CMS mandate and the OSHA rules. So we'll hear what their opinions are on that. But before we get to that, we've got a little bit of advertisement stuff going on. Again, in less than 2 weeks now, all three of us, along with Dr. Beth LaFay, will be at this event in Stowe. I just heard that they're over 80% sold out. So if you do want to meet all of us at the same time, you can quickly get your tickets before they're all gone. We also have an advertisement there for Warner and all of his press that he's been getting of late. He's going to be on an interview with Naomi Wolf on Wednesday night at 7. I did put this up on my group page and the Beyond the Data page, but Facebook seems to be kind of burying it, which it does tend to do. So I recommend you go directly to that or it's called dailyclout.io. And you can go there and you need to register for it. It'll be 7 o'clock on Wednesday. And we get to hear about, it's the Smuckers case, right, Warner?
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. So that seems to be what's being talked about there. So now kind of advertisement type stuff off the table there. It's been about 2.5 weeks, I think, since we've had you both on. And I do know that Warner, you have some updates on some of your recent cases, good news and bad news. Which one do you want to give us first?
Well, let's go with the good news. We've had I think the first thing that's kind of interesting is that we are getting some coverage of these cases. So, the case against Bowling Green has been reported by WTLO or TOL out in Toledo. And we have these university cases around the state. So the Dispatch did a story, the Columbus Dispatch did a story about 4 of the cases. The Ohio Star, which is a new online magazine, did a story on the Ohio University case. And the Cincinnati Enquirer did a story on the UC case that also got picked up by the Ohio Press Network. And then it's kind of interesting, some Avon Lake parents had contacted me concerned about the masking issue. And just the fact that they put up a GoFundMe resulted in some stories from Channel 19 and Channel 3. So I think it's interesting that the press is looking at these cases. And I've got to say, there's inaccuracies in the reporting, and you always struggle with that. But to some extent, we're starting to get the story told in a very straightforward way by the newspapers. And just so people know, I'm going to recap a little bit. I know we've talked about the university cases in particular, but there is no Comirnaty vaccine. I hate to call it a vaccine. There's no Comirnaty shot available in Ohio, or as far as I know, in the United States right now. And the issue with that is we have a state law that means that if you cannot discriminate against students that have refused to take the shot, if there is no approved shot available. And there is no approved shot available, although all the universities are saying, oh yeah, there is, that it's the same thing. Well, it's not the same thing, and anybody can look at the federal websites, and you can see that they are legally distinct. That means when I go to a court of law, Comirnaty versus BioNTech, the FDA has determined that they're legally distinct. So that provides a pathway for these lawsuits. We're obviously at some point going to get a ruling on this, and I think we have a pretty clear legal argument. Now, I think the the press just being relatively fair is very good news. The second thing that has happened that's good news is, and Catherine, your friend did a heck of a job on this. Our friend, I should say, she did a heck of a job helping a bunch of nurses continue to be, in their training, young, I don't know, nursing students, I should say. And she took a little bit of information and blew it up and confronted, I think it was Tri-C. Is that right, Catherine?
No, Lorraine County Community College, along
Lorraine
with other
County.
ones. Actually, I do kind of have a little bit of an update on that one. If anybody is currently in that position, we do have some more solutions. So please reach out to me or to Carrie Benton directly, and we can very directly help you with that particular situation. I can't
Yeah,
be a little more. I can't be any more direct than that one. Then yeah,
that's
we've got a
okay.
solution to it.
You'll have to tell me later what
I'll
that.
have to tell you that later. Sorry.
But I mean, it really is important. We have lots of nursing students that are being threatened with their classes being dropped, being threatened, and Mitch has worked on this as well. But if you confront the administrations, it seems like their arguments fall apart very quickly, and these nursing students can then get placed, and they can continue whatever practicums they're doing. We had two, and it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, we're kicking nursing students, and then I'm going to the doctors next. Nursing students and doctors out of their training or their medical school over stupidity, over a shot that clearly doesn't work. And now we're starting to see as negative efficacy, which means it actually makes you more vulnerable. I think the number is 38% more likely to get COVID if you've been boosted. So I don't know. It's just an insanity. But so anyway, I wanted to mention Carrie's success because that's just phenomenal. The attorneys are doing all that they can. I wish we could do more, but the fact that there's some folks who are taking the reins and going with it and confronting administrators and confronting our officials is just fantastic. The other thing is that, and I'm going to move on to the doctors. So we had a young doctor or a young MD student who they were going to kick out. And he had actually called Dr. McCullough, and McCullough somehow he got to us, and we got him. We got him back on track. So that's the medical student, and that did not involve a lawsuit, which Mitch can address that too. Many times it doesn't involve a lawsuit, but it did take. I mean, my God, it took a month of emails, calls, letters, back and forth. I mean, it's insanity what you have to do to convince the administrators that they are wrong, and even to convince them that they have a threat that is legitimate. The young doctor, this is public record. It's Dr. Bobet, and he was at Wright State University, and he was doing his residency at Kettering Medical Center. And he's been there for 18 months. He's working daily, almost 14 hours a day in the emergency room. And now we have this stupid mandate, and you're going to kick him out. I mean, let's think about this, folks. I don't know where common sense went. He's been there every day. He's exposed every day to COVID. He's immune, folks. He's been there 18 months. He's got 18 months to go. And they're going to kick him out in the middle of this, proven immunity, taking care of people, saving lives, and make it so that his career was trashed. So there had been communications on that, but it did ultimately result in a lawsuit. We filed the lawsuit. I mean, this is a miracle. Nobody hold us to these standards that I'm going to say. This is a miracle what happened. We filed the lawsuit on Monday. We had him reinstated by Tuesday. We actually appeared before a judge, Judge Rice, who was a President Carter appointee. He was appointed in 1980. And, Judge Rice, I think he's just, we almost don't, you have to remember back. I mean, this was a true lawyer who heard the case. He listened, and we actually put the transcript up. It's very interesting. He made kind of an oral ruling on the temporary restraining order. We have that on covidlawcast.com in the latest post. But and if you read it, I mean, for a lawyer to read it, I don't know if you got a chance to look at that, Mitch. But for a lawyer to read it, it's just like, oh, here's a judge. He understands the law. He's going to apply it. And the other side, there was some negotiation. The other side wouldn't even come to a stay put agreement. While this got hashed out, they totally rejected it. Well, the judge ruled against them. They rolled the dice, and they rolled it with the wrong judge. And I kind of want to make a point here, and I mentioned he was a Carter appointee. We do not know how a judge is going to take it. You get a judge who cares about the law and cares about the Constitution, whether they're Democrat or Republican, you can bet you're going to get a hearing. You're going to get a thorough review of what you've presented to them, and they would then rule. And this is just a really good sign. Likewise, I mean, unfortunately, I've known Judge Adams and like him. He's been on the federal bench, and he heard the Smuckers TRO motion a couple of weeks ago. And on that, and I'm going to mention a loss, folks, because we lost that TRO. And TROs are and TRO, I use this slang, this legal slang. It's for a temporary restraining order to restrain Smuckers from, firing 20 of its managers. And, Judge Adams, who's a Republican judge, and I consider him a friend. I run into him out of the courtroom sometime. He's a very nice guy, but he did not think we could make the case in the Smuckers situation. So, politics, we all pick sides and we all think, oh, it's the Democrats or oh, it's the Republicans. Listen, all the judges are people. We have to stay open to the people, whoever they are, however we encounter them, and whether they're Democrat or Republican, we just don't know what the outcomes are going to be. And I even heard, from a lawyer who was somewhat critical of how we were filing our cases, like, well, you better target this judge and that judge, file in this county, not that county. And then I said to the lawyer, I said, well, we won in Butler County, which is one of the ones you didn't want us to file in, So, this is, we definitely have a calling, Mitch and I and Catherine and Carrie, and I think many of those who are out there, we're sort of called to do, our work on this. And that calling means that, I don't think we can try to control everything. What's happening to us is about control. The way out of this is to let go and let God, and we're going to find out where we end up. And I was dealing with, some clients tonight, and it was really, it was heartrending because, and I'm going on and on, Mitch, I'm sorry, but it was just heartrending. And I get this over and over, how much our clients have loved their employment, loved the people they're working with, loved the job that they're doing, work hard for these companies, and then they're treated like this. You start to realize that, we have an emotional attachment to our places of work and what we're doing to be productive in society, and it's part of our tribe. It becomes our tribe, our family, and then to be excommunicated from that tribe over something so stupid, and the fact that the executives and the administrators are simply not seeing the data that the three of us, and I know many of the listeners were probably preaching to the choir anyway, but we all know that the vaccinated, the ones that got the shot, are carrying the disease. We all know they're getting sick. Our friends, our family who chose to get the shot, they've all been sick with this Omicron or whatever. It is simply not working. And to be firing these people who love their jobs and loved these companies, and to be firing medical workers in the midst of a real healthcare crisis. I mean, I hope nobody thinks I'm downplaying that this is a serious illness. It's serious, but we need all hands on deck. We need, whether they want to get a shot or not get a shot, we need all hands on deck. Um, one of the things that was interesting too, the Smuckers Company has this diversity, equity, and inclusion, stuff going on within the company. And it is so hypocritical when you are now all of a sudden reducing your diversity, you're not being equitable, and you're excluding, not including a whole set of people who have very solid reasons for not going along with this program. And, whether they be a medical issue that they can't take the shot, a religious belief, and whether they just have a reason of conscience for not having their body infiltrated by mRNA, which affects your genetics and affects many things, effects that we don't even know about, nor can we contemplate at this time because there hasn't been enough trial data so far. So, there's good news and bad news in that. I think the other good news is just all of you who are listening, all of you who've called us, all of the people we have the privilege to represent, all of the Ohioans and others around the country that are standing up to fight this. We are going to reclaim our country. We are going to rebuild our country. We are going to reestablish the Constitution. And we are going to be better for it, even though we're in a terrible situation right now. Out.
Dropping the mic on that one. All right. So do you have any of your local cases? Do you want to give us an update on that, Mitch? Or not terribly much?
Yeah. It had a couple of setbacks. You can't win them all, but that's part of the business that we're in. We're born tough for a reason, and had a couple of people that I represented that, notwithstanding their religious exemption, which I felt was valid and sincere, the employer is just going to march forward and terminate them anyway. And that's one of the what I call one of the wild cards in the deck, is that you have to be aware that there's people, it's like the bully on the schoolyard. They're going to be there, and a lot of times they will back down. Sometimes they won't. I think in the long run, the law is completely on our side. I also think that these cases actually get better as time goes by because all the data is trending in our direction. And so every day, every week that goes by, a new study, a new survey, a new recommendation, I don't see any of them that hurt our cases. And that's good news, frankly. And I had mentioned earlier, talking to Warner, that, I've been an attorney for over 20 years. Warner's been attorney for longer than I have, and I've been involved in cases that actually got worse the further you went along in the case, and you were trying to find a way out. But I think these, with the experts that we have coming on board, with the constant lies that we continue to catch them in, on again, off again, in and out, and up and down, and just back and forth, month after month after month. Yes, that is frustrating to listen to. It's frustrating to deal with. But when these things get in front of a real judge and a real jury for, a trial for a week or 2 or 3, these people are going to be really squirming. So that is very encouraging to me. That's not a short-term encouragement, and I understand that people are, they're losing their job, come Monday or a week from now. I get that. And unfortunately, we just have to hang in there. It's worth hanging in there. This country is unique. There's not another country like it, never has been. And it could be 500 years before we have a country like this again if we don't save what we have now. And it's still cheaper and easier to save it now than it is to let it go down the tube and then try to rebuild it 10 generations from now. If you look on the chart of history, hundreds and hundreds of years often go by before things change. So we're going to be hanging in there, and we have more attorneys that are getting on board with Warner's got his base camp set up. He set that up last week. I've already posted several things to it. I've gotten several responses to what I posted, which helped me. And that's going to build. That is going to be a very positive thing. That's going to be extremely helpful. It's going to save many hours of time, and it's going to put us in touch with people actually all over the country. I think we've got an attorney from New Jersey that signed up there. And one of the cases that an opposing counsel quoted to me, he happened to be the person that filed that case in New Jersey, and it's working its way through the appeals courts there. So don't get discouraged. This is just part of the process, and we just have to continue to hang in there. We're gonna take it on the chin a few times, but we're gonna keep getting up each time. So these people are they're gonna start to get accustomed to that we're not giving up.
Yeah, definitely not giving up. I mean, it is something really important that I mean, a lot of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes with more and more lawyers coming in, that is definitely something to mention. There really are. I've seen it. There are more lawyers, whether or not they're as upfront as these two are. They are out there, and they are starting to realize that they need to get involved, and having people connect is always the most important thing. That's one of the reasons why they keep trying to disconnect us from each other, is because us being connected is what helps us fight back against this, because they're just trying to overwhelm us with numbers, and that really is the way of it. And we do all have to help ourselves, and hopefully now, with more and more legal minds, since we've entered into the legal realm, since we've passed beyond the executive, we've passed beyond the legislative branch. Now we're at the end of the road here, and so we need all the help we can get. But we've got more and more of that help. So I actually will have some. I'll have a Beyond the Data probably later this week, where we actually talk about an individual situation where how do you fight this thing? Because in the end, it's pretty obvious that at this point in time, they're not going to stop. The companies that are going to do this are going to go through with it, whether it's legal or not. They're going to just keep pushing through. And people need to know that, and they need to understand that, and they need to know what to do next when they do get that notification that they're fired and their religious exemption is ridiculously rejected and illegally rejected. What to do? How do you deal with that? And I'll have that later this week. I'm pretty sure. So do you think we're covered over on our local cases side? You guys ready to talk about the Supreme Court?
Did we? Yeah, the base camp that we've set up with the attorneys. I mean, I am thrilled that at the numbers of attorneys that have reached out to us that want to help, and I not all the attorneys have the background in some of the litigation areas, but they are very, very thoughtful people. And, what it enables us to do is put some ideas up there and get their responses. And and they are really supporting us. And this was just an initial launch with I think it's about 25 attorneys, with other people. Catherine knows what's going on there. But I really hope to build this to, a nationwide network. We have attorneys already at a national level from New Jersey, from New York, from San Francisco. I think we got one from Chicago. I'm not sure, but we are already, North Carolina. So we're building a network that, and we're going to try to go live this week with just kind of to link people to counsel that will do this type of work. So we are going to start a new website called Health Freedom Council. And Catherine, I'm sure we'll put that up on her website as soon as we have that going. It'll initially be pretty basic with just links and names of lawyers. But as we move forward, in particular, we've talked about, the processes in the EEOC and the Ohio Civil Rights Commission and unemployment. We're going to try to have some guides there and some step-by-step processes, so that people, like Carrie did, just take the information and run with it. Let's get how to do a public records request. Hopefully we'll have examples on that. How to file with your Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and your Ohio Civil Rights Commission. So we're working on that right now. And who's working on it? Some of these lawyers that were brought on, or who I shouldn't say brought on, they reached out to us and they're coming in to help. I see Cam's giving me a quote. Cam, I'm going to apologize to you. We have had things just blowing up all over the place all week long, as you can see. I love you guys. You are working like crazy, and I want to tell Cam something in particular. We have really been working very hard on the school mask issue. And I do think that I see some new pathways for that. We've done kind of an analysis. There's not just one part of the revised code that applies to the school mask issues. There's 5 or 6 threads in there. And I think, we actually were spending a lot of time on this week. And Mitch and I talked earlier today about the mask issue as well. I asked him for a little bit of help on some things. But, we think, we were able to tie some threads together that kind of show in a stronger way than what I even thought 2 weeks ago, why the masking is inappropriate under the law, besides the fact that it's completely ineffective. And I did see Molly on the chat talk about the OU N95 requirement. And I want to get to that in a minute. But Mitch, did you get a chance to look at some of the mask materials I sent to you today? Did you get a chance to look at that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. There's quite a bit there. I think there's a lot to work with as far as putting together a brief, which I'm going to work on probably even tonight after we're off of this call. But and some of those statutes I had already pulled several days ago. I've got some people in Medina that are dealing with a similar overbearing situation with the masks, and they're denying all religious exemption, just like all of them. And the superintendent just flat out said, "We're just denying them all," just with the wave of the scepter from his throne. That I'm going to be pivoting over to the mask issue, as I know you are.
Did you see some things in there that you thought were that you hadn't realized before or not? Was that all stuff you had seen before in there? I'm sorry, we're having a little bit of inside baseball chat, but I Some of it was I was a little, and where I saw the Ohio Revised Code, where I'm not going to quote this properly, but it gives them any authority, the school board, any authority to have safety and vaccination in the school. Right.
Certainly it's got to be curtailed. I mean, there's got to be limits to that.
Yeah. And let me explain to the audience. I know we've shot off on sort of an inside discussion there for a minute, so let me bring it back. there is a general vaccination status. I don't or statute, and I don't have that in front of me right this second. I'd quote it if I had it in front of me. But the statute itself is what the schools are relying on to say they have all kinds of authority. And the state legislature, what's interesting in our argument is essentially this. The state legislature, with Senate Bill 22, limited the powers of the health departments. And the health departments have the primary legal authority for quarantine, masking, distancing, all that stuff. And the statute that the schools are relying on is older than the statute that was passed this past summer. So we believe that they've defined even more particularly what the health department powers are. Certainly a school, which has not got the expertise of a health department, cannot exceed the powers of a health department, which is essentially what they're doing. They're exceeding the power of the health department. So,
yeah, good point.
And I'm just explaining out loud what we have in writing, and everybody's going to get an update on this on Monday. I've got all kinds of school districts, and we are going to file a lawsuit. We have a lawsuit as well going on that I'll announce on Monday once I get the case number for it. But we're consulting with all kinds of parents, but these schools have literally exceeded their authority, and it's beyond the authority health departments have. That makes no legal sense at all. There is a pattern to our laws. This violates all those patterns. The other thing I'd like to point out, and one of our first tests or cases that we've talked about on here was the young lady who was actually, they charged her criminally. Mm-hmm. And so, that's the first time that I really delved into the statutes and started looking at the structure. That was months ago, but the judge threw that out because the school had no authority. So we've succeeded actually with this argument in the criminal side. We got to bring it over to the civil side, but they have no authority. They were claiming an authority they didn't have, and then they had her charged criminally over this. And,
ridiculous.
And again, I mean, we didn't know how that judge was going to respond. Boom, he kicked that out like right now. So what was I going to say? One of the issues in that case that I think is critical here, if you're going to impose a health mandate on anyone, they have to have the disease, the illness, I should say illness. They have to have the illness. And also they have to be in direct contact. This is under Senate Bill 22, guys. They have to be in direct contact with somebody who has the illness. So this issue of, you got exposed because you were within X number of feet of somebody is not the law in my book. Senate Bill 22 makes that clear. That's why her case was thrown out of court. And I think the same thing applies to these schools. And to exercise that authority, you've got to have a signed document, an order by a health department official saying, hey, you got to take your kid home. For these school boards to send kids home that have no symptoms is contrary to everything I'm reading in this law. Now, Mitch said we're going to lose some on the way. We may lose at the common pleas level, but we have to test this out. We've got to put this out there, and we're going to have to do it in multiple counties. We may have a bad ruling in Summit, but we may have a good ruling in Lake or, Wood County or wherever. But we've got to test this. We've got to get it before judges and get them to rule on it. And then we also know all of these lawsuits are going to go up on appeal. And and even if we win, I think that's the other thing. People need to understand this litigation process. Even if we win, they're going up on appeal. So If we lose, we got to appeal it. If we win, they're going to appeal it. No matter what, we're going to be fighting this at the appellate level and possibly at the Ohio Supreme Court level. So it's going to be a long battle, folks. I know, and I apologize to everyone who I have made promises to that we broke. We are doing our best to get this stuff produced. You can see if you follow COVID Lawcast, we are producing. We're not just sitting here twiddling our thumbs, but it is very difficult to get this stuff out the door when crises like doctors getting kicked out of medical school, like we've had several deaths are occurring, and we are doing our best. I've got 5 attorneys here, and we got 5 support staff, and everybody's scrambling, and Mitch is scrambling. So, we are on it. We're moving as quickly as we can. And like I said, we've had some new insights on the masks in the last couple of weeks. We're trying to get those into our letters and into our complaints.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just chewed up another 10 minutes.
Well, let me throw this out, Warner.
I guess I'm on fire tonight a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. The Steele case versus Hamilton County, how is that applicable to the schools as well? I know you give up certain rights when you enroll in a school, and but those constitutional rights should stay in place.
No, I mean, and the Steele case just goes to, under Ohio's Constitution, we have a right to bodily autonomy and medical decision making. And for our officials to all of a sudden come in and impose experimental shots on us that haven't been tested, that aren't approved, that is just, that it's we use this word all the time. It's unprecedented. I mean, I almost hate to use it again. It's obscene. Let's use another word. It's obscene. It's obscene from a legal standpoint. It's a complete deterioration. It's undignified by our legal system to do this. Yeah. They have really, really shredded the Constitution by these actions. They've shown no respect. Yeah, and I guess I like obscenity. It's an obscenity what our public officials are doing. Yeah, I see Monica saying, I hate the word unprecedented. Me too, Monica. We'll switch to obscenity.
That's a cleaner word.
Yes, it is. Definitely. And there are definitely more words to use to describe what they are.
I almost had to laugh because, and back to Medina, the one person that I've been talking to, they sent me an email, and it quotes a Second Circuit case out of New York, and I did a LexisNexis search on it, and the Sixth Circuit has not adopted that law at all. I mean, not one court in the Sixth Circuit, and yet in Medina they're using a Second Circuit Court of Appeals case that basically says you can run the school however you want in order to keep the disease down, and you defer to the authorities and so forth. And it just took like about a 5-minute Lexis search that case is completely irrelevant in our circuit. So I just thought you'd get a kick out of that one.
Well, gosh, what was I going to say? I'm kind of reading the comments as I'm going. We actually had some public officials respond appropriately in Ohio. And let's actually, I want to point them out. I have seen this letter from Seneca County. I sent that to you today. That came out of Seneca County. Do you know we have public officials who follow the law?
Yeah, we do actually. Usually in the more rural counties, but there are actually public health officials that are fantastic in the state. They're really top notch. They just get buried by the big counties.
But I mean, let's not. I know, and you see where I am in my head. I don't want to overlook, because I'm being very critical of our public officials. Very critical. There are some wonderful public servants out there. For the record, thank you for your service. We have heard from some of them. They are trying to let us know what's going on. They are spilling the beans on the bad guys in our public service. And we have some good leadership that's actually been able to put policies in place that make sense, follow the Constitution, and keep us safe. That's the thing about all this. All this craziness that's going on is not keeping us safe. It is not about safety. It is damaging. It's so damaging to children's health, psychology. It's damaging to our communities to shut down all the small businesses. Even a bar that we're representing, that bar represents a family that was depending on that bar. Whether you drink or you don't drink, That's a business, and they needed to stay alive, and they took their business from them and they damaged them. That case, we're trying to get the Supreme Court to hear it, the Ohio Supreme Court to hear it. But again, I was on the positive side. Let me get back there. And I'll tell you who else I appreciate. People know about my battles for 25 years in my hometown here. I got to tell you, our mayor has actually been reasonable. He's been very reasonable. I need to say something about that because he's been reasonable. There's no mandates going on with the city employees here. We have, 15 to 1,700 city employees. There's no mandate. They can, if they want the shot and they feel like it's good for them, they can get it. If they want to wear a mask, they can wear a mask. There's no mandate here. So, I mean, and I know, you can always criticize a public official, and I'm certainly guilty of being hypercritical of our public officials. But, I do want to say we've got some good ones out there. We need to recognize who they are and make sure they move forward in this world and succeed in this world.
Good point. Yep. Credit where credit is due. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Do we think? I think we've covered a lot of the local stuff there, and you definitely. I hope you covered with the mask mandates because that was definitely a big question. Because we are coming back into school season and the masks are coming up in force like massively. I do know a lot of schools have delayed their start, and I know a lot of people have been wondering how that whole process is going. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you are going to file starting tomorrow?
And what we'll do, we will announce it through COVID Lawcast. And like we do with everything we do, the brief or the complaint will be available to everyone immediately. So we're going to we'll link to it. And if you're on covidlawcast.com, if you sign up for that, and it's free to sign up. I mean, there is a way to support the effort, but it's free for everybody. There's no limitation on what you're going to see. You're going to see everything we post and and anything on there, please steal it, use it, whatever you can do with it. But we're going to put that complaint up there so people understand the arguments that we're making, because I think we got something. I think we've got something really good here. And, we may still lose, even though I think it's good. We may still lose at Common Pleas, but I mean, we have a good legal argument. We've figured out a structure to attack this. And we're going to have that available for everybody across the board. There's some letters that are going to be going out to some school boards, kind of based on what we've determined, in terms of our analysis of this. And Mitch is helping on that. Thank you, Mitch. And we'll I know the parents, and we've presented to Madison, we presented to Penta, we presented at various school boards around the area. And some of them have listened too. I got to say that too. Some of the school boards have listened. They've changed their policies. And it's just so important that public officials listen. It's just critical. And so many public officials are just running from us and hiding in the bushes. I don't know what they're doing. But if the ones that stay present and will engage in debate, that's what we've got to have, is a legitimate, open debates about these issues. Anyway, so I'll stop the local ranting, and I cannot believe we just spent that much time. I've been talking too much.
Well, yes. But again, this is all stuff that we are all interested in, and we're also disconnected from. I mean, this is, I would say, for most people who are watching this, we don't have that much dealing in the whole legal system and how things progress and how they do move slowly and what aspects are important to keep in mind, especially in such a situation where speed is of the essence, but at the same time, you need to get it right. All right, so I think we should move on to at least a little bit on the Supreme Court and the hearings that happened on Friday, which were about the OSHA rulemaking process and the CMS. And I talked to both of you earlier today about one thing I noticed after listening to all that and thinking it through, and I asked both of you if you heard it as well, about, did anyone hear the word Constitution heard at all in any of those arguments?
Well,
I
the Constitution was. I mean, there were. You're right. I mean, it's
the Supreme Court. It has one job, whether it's constitutional or not. And at least, I mean, as a simple lay person who's very basic understanding of how the Supreme Court is supposed to work and how it's supposed to argue, the only thing that should matter is it constitutional? And that's not at all what we heard at all. Everything was about grave danger and the efficacy of the vaccine, and misinformation from our Supreme Court justices.
That's a really good point, Catherine, actually. And it's something that, when I am doing an appellate argument, one of the things that I try to do is make sure that I am focused on the law and I'm not lost in all these extraneous facts that actually, these facts are actually irrelevant. They're irrelevant. It doesn't matter how bad the pandemic is. It could be a smallpox epidemic with 30% mortality. Guess what? The Constitution still applies. Our Constitution leaves it up to us to be responsible for ourselves and our family. And we expect that our leaders will give us good information that we can then act on as we see fit. This crap that they're doing, we've had pandemics, we've had cholera, smallpox, all kinds of things, and this is minor compared to any of that stuff, and yet we're getting ready. I saw today, I was looking on the CDC that they want to have, want to have quarantine facilities for people. They have a plan for quarantine facilities. This is on the CDC website. Are you kidding me?
They've had those documents before, since the beginning. I actually have them somewhere in my stack over here. I have whole blueprints of quarantine facilities that at the very beginning that they had put out there.
Yeah, I'll post this in the chat if I don't know, maybe I can't get in the chat, but yeah, it's on Centers for Disease Control. They talk about implementing a shielding approach, and they want to find existing facilities where they can isolate people they consider a danger to public health. Now listen, we have historically had health departments, and they do have quarantine power. Nobody's saying that they don't. They do. Our local governments have very strong police powers. We have never implemented one-size-fits-all national solutions to this kind of stuff. It has been jurisdiction by jurisdiction by jurisdiction, which at least enables many different responses, many, effective or not. It's a good, the federal system creates great test beds for different ideas. One state does it this way, another state does it this way. We learn, we can figure out what's effective. When you start doing one size fits all, authoritarian, top down, you lose the experimental nature of our entire country. You lose the test beds of the states and the local governments, which we've always recognized have that police power. So we that's what there was really no discussion of that. And the other thing, there was no discussion of the rights of the individual. I mean, I think I heard it once. And then beyond that, I think it was Sotomayor said, oh, there's 100,000 kids on ventilators. What the heck are you talking about?
Well,
100,000 kids on ventilators. How can you be so completely unaware of the data? Yeah. Well, and disconnected from reality. Go ahead, Catherine. I'm sorry. Yeah. I gotta.
Well, I do have to hand it to the media. At least she did get reamed for that one. She did on the media. They actually fact checked her, as they gave her a false. There were some other comments on it where she, at least for that one, did really get it. But it was incredible listening to the justices they live in a different world. They live in a different year. I mean, they kept talking about how incredibly special the disease is and how incredibly efficacious the vaccine is, and it was so disconcerting hearing them say that, you know, it's so important to prevent the spread. Here we are in the middle of the Omicron wave, which is, of course, specifically affecting the vaccinated, and that was never addressed there either. But of course, that is a complete that's another side branch again, where no, it has nothing to do with that. It's about the individuals. It's about the Constitution, who has the right to do any of this stuff. The other thing about it in the OSHA part of it that blew my mind is most of the argument they were giving was all about the powers granted to OSHA in 1975. I mean, that was what most of that argument was based upon, and I'm still like, I don't know which way this thing is going to go. I don't feel very comfortable that they're going to stay this at all, or I don't. I mean, what do you guys think?
I'll point out something. It's going to sound like it's a little off topic, but it's not. The Supreme Court is actually a political institution. Now, it might be argued that it's the least political institution of our institutions, but John Roberts particularly is very preoccupied with the image of the court to the country. And actually, that goes back quite a way. The Supreme Court has a very high approval rating in the eyes of the public, certainly compared to the other institutions of government. It's something like 60% of the people have respect for the United States Supreme Court. And one of the reasons why that is that they are viewed as impartial. And that is something that, and this is really a long discussion here, but I'm going to try to just hit the highlights of it. But he's concerned about court packing. And that explains a lot of his votes swinging over to the other side of where he normally would be expected to vote. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing, and I believe that a person should be voting their conscience all the time, period, regardless of any kind of political considerations or even court packing considerations. But I can tell you he is very concerned about that. And I believe that it's had a big effect on his vote. And it may even be having an effect on the votes of some of the newer members. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying that's right or good or desirable, but for those out there that are just scratching their head and just can't understand why in the world would he vote the way he votes, or even Kavanaugh or Amy Coney Barrett, I can tell you that is a very real fear in the back of their minds. I wouldn't be surprised, just kind of handicapping this, if one decision goes one way and the other case goes the other way. That would not surprise me one bit, frankly. And again, I'm just talking politics here. I'm just talking the way it is, not the way it should be. Because I know there's people that just scratch their head, understandably so, over this. They just cannot understand it for the life of them. And there, I believe, is part of the explanation, maybe all of the explanation. Because I know John Roberts, he has voted differently, even when he would not allow an injunction to go in place. And we're puzzled over that. But then when they finally hear the full merits of the case, then he votes on the other side of it. So those who kind of follow the Supreme Court, and there's several journalists that do. I know Amy Howe does. Linda Greenhouse from the New York Times, I believe she's retired, but she was the main Supreme Court recorder for many years. That's just something from a political point of view that can help explain some of the behavior that seems to have no explanation to it.
Let me ask you something, Mitch. I mean, one of the things that, when you say he was concerned about the image of the court, and I don't know where the public is exactly right now, and I'm in my bubble fighting this all the time, but do you think, I wonder if the majority of the country still has the view that some of the justices were talking about, that the vax is, that the shot is efficacious still, that it still works. That's what I worry about. I mean, these people were like completely clueless. I mean, and talk about the image of the court. They didn't have the facts. They didn't realize that the shot is really failing dramatically. That the boosters only last about 8 weeks.
Well, and
You
it's a
know,
booster for the original strain, which is not what we are encountering now
targeted,
or in
right.
the future. I mean, it's a laugh.
They've lost the plot. I mean, the reality out here, the facts. I mean, we do have the truth on our side, but I'm just so concerned that we maybe still have a majority of the public that doesn't have even, there's some that don't have even a shred of it. I mean, some after this Omicron variant, I think, are at least waking up. I know many people who got the shot and they also got sick with Omicron here over December. And I think they were shocked. I mean, some had been double shotted and boosted. In fact, one of the attorneys at the argument had a double shot and a boost, and he was sick with Omicron. I mean, it's right in their face. This thing is ridiculously ineffective. It's just a failure. Let's just accept it, move on. Let's get these out of the market and move on. And we're going to have to help all the people who have been injured by them, the millions that have been injured. But what do you think, Mitch? I mean, that's what I worry about, that the court, it is political, and they're looking at a majority of the country, I think still, that feels like this is something that we should be doing.
Yeah. And I mean, it's very troubling. I mean, just the Sonia Sotomayor comment about such a basic fact, and to have it like not even close. I mean, when I read that, I almost thought, maybe I was misreading it, but to actually blurt out, a rough number of 100,000 children, and then we find out it's 4,400 or something like that. I mean, it's just almost embarrassing. I mean, if I was an attorney in the court, I mean, I would just be squirming. How do I, in a very polite, diplomatic way, correct one of the justices of the United Supreme Court on her facts? So yeah, that is so troubling. That one alone it speaks volumes. Very sad.
Well, she also had some special comments about how human beings are, if they're like a machine, in that they could be spewing blood-borne viruses, which and then Justice Breyer was. I mean, I was concerned for him. He sounded a little bit unhinged. I mean, it was really concerning. When you say that the Supreme Court has been the most trusted institution in the United States after Friday, I suspect that might be changing, because there was so much in there that so many of us, even people who are accepting of the narrative, have to say, what? Just the 100,000 is just.
And maybe that's what's happening, Catherine. I mean, we have never seen the control of the narrative like what we faced. And I mean, you've been shut down. I mean, I keep getting warnings on my Facebook pages if I post something. Everybody gets cited. Even if I put something about a legal case, they say COVID-19 information. Are you kidding me? I'm talking about the law here, not COVID, not anything. It's just the law, not the disease. It's the law. And I guess that maybe that's what's happening. Maybe our leadership is so ignorant to the facts on the ground. And we're in here on the facts on the ground. We see it every day. We're dealing in real life too. I mean, Mitch and I are out here. Our friends are getting sick. Our families are getting sick. They've been vaxxed. I mean, this is obvious stuff. It's starting to become more and more obvious to most of the world. I mean, are the Supreme Court justices in such a bubble that they don't even realize that there's any breakthroughs? I mean, is that really what's happening? And then are they watching CNN or Fox or whatever they're watching, that is such a limited range of argument that, it's very tightly constrained? And and it's so tightly constrained that it's not reality. They're trying to create some kind of reality, but it is just not the reality out here. And the reality gets tested by the truth. But if you're not putting the truth, the reality, I'm putting that in quotes, it gets tested by the truth all the time. And if you can't even get the truth, if you can't even get the facts of that of the failure of the shot and the breakthroughs, and they're not seeing it, and it's nowhere in their media or information environment. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. I mean, and talk about the destruction of an institution that's completely cut off, that has got an information flow cut off. That is deadly. That's designed to fail. That's exactly what we know about, systems. It's basic systems think. You have to have information from the past, so you have to know your history. We all have to know our history. You have to understand your internal information, what's going on with you and your family. And then you have to be open to information from the outside, information that challenges your thoughts and beliefs, or you are no longer even close to reality. And I think that's, unfortunately, here I go. Unfortunately, what I heard from the court is they're not even discussing the reality on the ground. We have justices they're isolated from reality. And I'm not being critical, I'm just observing what's happened here. They're isolated from reality, so much so that there's some fantasy land that I heard them talking about in this court case yesterday. And I'm not, I can't help but be a little critical. The lawyers, and the lawyers, I think the lawyers are probably, and Mitch and I both know, in the big firms, you've seen this. You've seen the mandates come down. They've all gotten the shot. They all believe in it. They're masking up. They shut down their offices. For God's sake, we've been open since May of 2020. We shut down to see what was going on, but we looked at all the information, figured out what the reality was, had our thoughts and beliefs tested, figured out that this wasn't a deadly disease for most people, figured out that you need some nutrition. You better get out there in the sun, have a good time on the lake, take your vitamin D, take your vitamin C, take your zinc, take your quercetin, take your ivermectin and your hydroxychloroquine, stock up on that stuff at this point. Do these things and take care of yourself, take care of your family, be responsible. And that's the reality. And they're just not living in it.
No.
Yeah, actually they have better facts than all of us have, because the facts are given, the Supreme Court or any court, because those facts are brought in under oath. and attorneys sign documents and complaints and so forth under, a declaration. We're officers of the court. We're not allowed to lie. I can't even send a letter. Not that I want to, but I can't send a letter to somebody and lie in the letter. I'm an officer of the court, and I can be disciplined for that. So
Nick, I'm going to, it is crazy what we're seeing from these big firm attorneys in court. They have no idea that Comirnaty, or however you want to pronounce it, is not available in this state. And they go in and with a straight face, and I can tell they believe it. They believe Comirnaty and BioNTech or whatever, they're the same thing, and that it doesn't matter for our lawsuits. Damn it, it's different. And in fact, it says it's legally different. I've come all the way around to the beginning of our conversation. It's different. And they cannot figure it out. They are stuck. Their brains are stuck. And they're making these arguments with the judges. And if you get a judge who's unstuck, like Judge Rice, who's appointed by Jimmy Carter, guess what? They're shocked. What's happened? Why did this judge not understand what's happened? Because you know what? Judge Rice is living in reality. Judge Rice, he escaped the fantasy world, and he's living in reality, and he looks at the Constitution, and he applies the facts to the law. That's what we saw with Judge Rice. Thank you, Judge Rice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even the attorneys, and you and I are cut from a different cloth. And I've always known I was cut from a different cloth. I'm just not into I'm just not into that big I'm not into that big firm culture. I like representing people that are kind of the underdog, and I've always represented people that are getting beat up in life pretty badly. I feel it's a calling. It's what gets me up in the morning and keeps me up late at night. And these big firm attorneys, they bill 2,000 hours or 2,100 hours a year. They bring in $1 million a year for the firm. It's about churning the cases, billing the hours, not really delving into what the facts are, at least much of the time. I don't want to say all the time. And then it's the smaller guys like you and I that have to point out what the real facts are to them in a very persistent fashion. And in some cases, we hand their head to them on a platter, because something like simple as the commodity, the availability of it, that's really not any new news. I mean, for a couple of months now, we've known it was approved, but some version in a lab is approved. You can't get it. And then we're building our laws around it, and they're making their arguments around that. And so I suppose in one way that helps us, because when they find that out at the hearing or at the very last minute, it's certainly not us that looks dumb. It looks like they didn't do their research like they should have. But I hear you. It's a Wild West.
Well, I mean, the problem though, Mitch, as you know, is that, some of the judges haven't woken to the facts on the ground either, though. They can't, they don't understand, that it's not available, that's an established fact, that it's even on, again, national CDC websites that it's not available. So, I mean, it's just such a battle. It's like, hey, the sky's blue. The sky's blue. The sky's blue. And you can't drag them outside even to show them the sky's blue or cloudy or whatever it is that day. You can't. Come on. I mean, you can. My frustrations. I'm sorry. I'm sort of on my negative rant here tonight. I can't. But I don't know. Look, I love all these people who are giving these comments. I mean, we know you guys are waking up. You guys are waking people up. We got to keep going. I mean, we cannot give up on our fellow human beings. We are not, we are about inclusion. We accept anyone, whatever their views were, they're welcome back to the real world. We're going to welcome them with open arms and love and acceptance, and they can come back to their families and live in the truth, and we will deal with the problems. And that is one of the issues, I think, too. These are hard realities. They're painful realities. People are dying. We're not suggesting they're not, but we cannot deal with an emergency with falsehoods. Falsehoods is what's going to cause us to fail. You don't deal with an emergency with falsehoods. The truth shall set you free. Where have I heard that before?
Yeah.
Catherine, I am sorry. You guys, whoever's been listening to this rant of mine tonight, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be like this, but I've been all day on the phone with employees, all day long. I was on the phone with Dr. McCullough too. He says this is a test of our courage. It's a test of our faith. And we are called to answer what we're facing with courage and faith. And I thank God I don't even know how he has time to call me or talk to me. He said he had a half an hour at 3:00. We got on the phone. Catherine was here too. She got to talk to him as well. And you heard his urgency, Catherine. I mean, what would you say to the folks about what he had?
Yeah, I mean, he's exactly in the same place that we all are. It's you have to do this. I mean, this is we all it sucks, but it's exhausting. But at the same time, I mean, the only thing to do is just wake up as many people as possible, because it is this situation of when people push back. That's when this ends. When people know what's going on, when they know the truth, and that's when this ends. It is that simple. And unfortunately, people who are controlling our lives from the government, they do not. They are deeply within this strange world of non-reality. And I don't know if people as far gone as Sotomayor and Breyer, I don't know if they ever come back from that. But it's frustrating to say the least. One question that there was in the chat there, because you need to go to your next call pretty soon.
I know I have to go. Yeah.
One after the other all day today. What happens if they do not maintain the stay on the CMS, or if they do not put in the stay on the OSHA? What would be the next steps in this whole process?
Mitch, do you want to take that one? I've been talking all night. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, we've thought about that already. I mean, we just keep marching on. I mean, in some ways, it doesn't matter. I mean, I figure that I'm going to be fighting this for the rest. I'm 60. I figure I'm just going to be fighting this for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. This is how I want to go out. I'm not interested in a cushy life and not with this going on. I mean, I just can't even. I think about it all the time, and so, I mean, I'm going to keep fighting away. And as I look at those comments on the side of my screen, I'm probably more motivated after this hour and 20 minutes to keep fighting it, because of all these people that are supporting us, that are happy with our work, that we're carrying the flag for them. And that's a great honor. I treat that as a very just almost like a solemn duty. And I know it's not written down anywhere. There's no official pronouncement of that, but I treat it that way. I really do. And when I have people calling here that don't have two nickels to rub together, and they're just trying to hold on to their $12 an hour job that they haven't missed a day in work in 17 years, I'm thinking I have to fight for that kind of a person. I just don't even feel I have any choice. So that's my personal take on it. And all I ask is for all you other guys that are making comments and ones that aren't making comments that are watching, just hang in there. If you hang in there, I'll hang in there.
I want to address that directly too, Mitch. And and the fact of the matter is, even with this, the way they let's say they rule for the mandates altogether, you still have your rights that we can defend. So you still have your religious exemptions, you still have your medical exemptions, you still have your exemptions of conscience, you still have your Americans with Disability Act exemptions. We can fight for you on all those ways. Even if we lose the big battle, we got lots of little ones left to go. There's a lot of ways to fight for you. And don't forget, we have an Ohio Constitution. And we are working right now with a group to try to come up with some very clear language for medical freedom in Ohio that will help, and we can get that through. So we can do a lot through our states, and then we can do a lot in our local communities, to make sure that a lot of our decisions are made by local leaders. We need to make sure that we've got local leaders who are woke to the issues, the truth. I know I'm switching all the words around. Diversity, equity, inclusion, woke. We're going to be woke. Watch us be woke. We're going to wake people up to the truth. There are those of us who are going to live in the truth, and the truth is something. We will accept the challenges. We'll accept the testing of it. But don't despair. If the Supreme Court goes against us, there's a way. There is a way. Those three statutes I mentioned, plus a set of state statutes, plus we have political organizing that we can do immediately. This is a we have to use a multi-therapy solution to what's happening, right? Just like in COVID, multi-therapy solution, politics, media, protest, elections, developing parallel economies, taking care of your families, taking care of your body, taking care of yourself, taking care of your kids. I mean, we've got everything we can do to get stronger, everything we can do to link up with people who we care about and who are of similar ways of thinking. We literally are the people who are inclusive. We literally are the people of equity, and we are the people of diversity, because everyone is welcome to this battle right now. We gotta save our country, and our country is diverse as can be. We gotta save it, and we know that Black Americans and Hispanic Americans and Democratic Americans and Republican Americans and gay Americans, they don't want to live in tyranny. No one, you know, and people are going to be waking up at different times in different places. We are not going to condemn them for their living in a fantasy world. We're going to say, welcome to the world. Welcome back. We are here. We're going to be strong. It's a little bit scary because you got to go on faith, but we're going to make it. That's how we've always been as a nation. That's the only way to be. There I go again. Sorry. Catherine, I do have to jump off, you guys. I'm sorry to have to leave everybody. Thank everybody for being out. I've got a whole group of employees I got to talk to now. And we'll be filing tomorrow a number of things. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Warner.
See you, Mitch. See you, Catherine.
See ya. Yeah. Yep.
So right before we sign off for the night here, I mean, one other thing I would like to add to that as well is, I mean, I always look at things in the most practical way that I possibly can here. And, you know, a lot of people in a very practical manner, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. I mean, we have reached that point where people need to understand that it's, as far as I understand it, it's highly unlikely for you to keep your job at this point in time if you happen to have an employer that is going to enforce this kind of thing, or if you do eventually win. It's an eventuality. It's not going to be something that's going to happen. You know, you're required to start the process of vaccinating tomorrow. Well, you're not. It's not going to be much longer before you end up getting fired or something, or your work becomes so restrictive that you cannot function in that anymore. And I think one of the most practical things people can do is to really start looking for something else. And the good news is there are lots of alternative society things appearing. Unfortunately, Warner left already, but I mean, he's been getting involved in more and more of these situations. Go find the people who are like us. I mean, and we need to just start thinking about creating our own businesses in this way, because this is not going to end quickly. Not at all. This is not a few weeks, a few months. This is probably a few years as far as I can see this thing going. So that's my little practical matter thing. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we end?
Yeah, no, you're right about that. I mean, it's a long haul, and but it's worth it. And we're the last. I mean, we're the last firewall. I mean, if you keep that in mind, it will put more fight into you. And I've said this many times at events that I've spoken at, is that, and I like your phrase, Catherine, that I borrow from you. Nobody's coming to save us. We're going to have to do it, and we can do it. We can do way more than we think, and we've been doing it. These people, they were hoping to have this completely wrapped up by now, and boy, they're having a hard time wrapping it up by now.
Yes,
it's taking a lot longer than they had anticipated. So we need to pat ourselves on the back a little bit for that. And I think they're going to lose. I feel sorry for them, because they're going to have the egg on their face. The facts are not with them at all. And as I mentioned earlier, as each week goes by and more information comes out, the surveys, the studies, the hospitalizations, their case is just absolutely crumbling and just gets weaker by the day. So good luck to them, because truth in the end is going to win out. There's way more people in this country that want truth than don't want truth. And there's a lot of people that took the jab. They're very sorry that they did. They're not going to tell you. They don't want anybody to know about that. But there's a lot of those people, when they go in the voting booth, they're going to be voting against these people, and they're going to be voting for freedom. So please be encouraged. Don't go home with your tail between your legs thinking, you know, if by, you know, next week the Supreme Court has not overturned all of this madness that we just have to throw in the towel. That's not the case at all. We still have those other laws, Title VII, ADA, the various exemptions that we have, that there's lots of progress that can be made on those things. So please don't give up. Hang in there.
All right. I think that's, well, one last thing I wanted to I almost forgot this as well. I know and Warner knows about the what's been happening to those at Akron Children's Hospital. I don't know how many people in total are being fired. They've had their religious or medical exemptions just denied straight out, and they're losing their job. And so there's going to be a rally, I guess it is, for them down at Akron Children's Hospital tomorrow at between 5 and 7 p.m. So if people are interested in and they're in the area and in joining here, I mean, this is a pretty brutal situation. They work at a children's hospital. Their clientele is at the least risk, and they are going to lose their jobs pretty much immediately. They were not given any exemptions, which is illegal, but it doesn't matter. They're just going to behave. The Akron Children's is behaving in a completely illegal manner, and that shouldn't be allowed to stand. So I just wanted to put that one up there, and I'd say we're good for tonight. So thank you for joining us again and giving us your thoughts on all the craziness that we're living through here.
You're very welcome. Good getting together.
All right. We'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.